Nick, thanks for joining us today over here.
Of course.
And the I call it the LA region for Keller Williams, but it's a little wider than that. And so thanks for doing this. We're going to be going over all of the equipment that you need for social media and real estate. And Nick's got a great presentation, so I'm just going to let him take it away. Nick, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here. So yeah, I got a whole bunch of stuff to cover today, and Tristan, I know you have a lot of cool equipment kind of sitting in your office there. So if there's anything that you want to share as we're going, feel free to chime in. Let's go ahead and get started here. So for those of you, I think I have presented here about 6 months ago. It's been a while. So just to do a quick intro. My name is Nick Niehaus. I'm the co-founder of Business Video School. We're actually probably right around our 1-year anniversary at this point. So we've been around for about a year. Worked with about 500 real estate agents just in their first year. And what we do is we teach real estate agents how to use video in their business. Now, I don't just say marketing, because our theory and argument is that video is a form of communication, and it should be present in every single aspect of your business over time, right? You don't have to do all this at once, but we want you to kind of start thinking that way, is how can I start communicating through video, right? And obviously today's presentation is an example of some of the power of communicating through video. So I'm going to be showing you a whole bunch of equipment today. This is stuff that's going to be usable and helpful in a lot of different situations and scenarios. But I'm also going to give you, to start out, a few tips on just some of the rules that sort of come into play when it comes to recording a video, right? So how do you light yourself correctly? How do you make sure that your audio looks, that this sounds nice and clean so people can hear you clearly, so on and so forth, right? So let's go ahead and just sort of dive into some of this. And the reason I wanted to start with a couple quick tips here for you is that there's actually a lot you can do without any equipment. So let's just give you kind of a qualifier real quick here, which is, before you buy any equipment, I really want you to have run into the problem that equipment solves, right? So let me repeat that again. You should have experienced the problem the equipment is solving before you buy it, all right? So that is important to start with these presentations. So if you're making a lot of videos already, if you're pretty experienced with doing video, then by all means, you've probably already encountered some of these problems. And some of the equipment you see today, you're going to go, oh, you know what? I really need that. And other things you might feel like you don't at all, right? Well,
Sure.
Until you've had some experience with video, you can't answer that question. And I have seen too many people buy up a bunch of stuff. We're talking an entire studio worth of equipment before they ever made any videos. And then it actually made it even harder to get started, because then they think they got to learn all this equipment, they got to set it all up, and it just becomes another reason to procrastinate. Okay. So that's sort of my kind of, caveat here as we start, is just keep that in mind. Don't go out and buy things just because you think you might need them in the future. And in fact, when we get to some of these products, you're going to start to realize that depending on the kind of camera phone that you have, depending on the smartphone that you're using, some of this equipment is already becoming obsolete. So if you're on here a couple seconds ago, Tristan and I were actually talking about gimbals, for instance, and I'll get to that. I'm just going to tease it at the moment, but keep that in mind. All right. So here's the simple lighting tips that I want to start with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some tips on lighting and some tips on audio that really are going to apply across the board. They're not going to necessarily require any equipment. So these are things that you can be taking into account today, right? So if all you have is your phone and you're ready to make a video, like, that really is all you need. Just try to follow these rules. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is light. Let me say this. We've worked with, so before we started Business Video School, I worked with agents for about probably almost 4 years prior to that. And for many of them, we were helping them make their very first ever video. All right. And so let me kind of tell you a little bit of a story about one of these agents. We'll just call her Sue for privacy's sake. So Sue comes in, and we had this really cool process where we would sit somebody down in our office, in our studio. We'd ask them a bunch of questions. We'd make a bunch of notes. And then from those notes, we would come up with a script for their very first ever video, right? So a lot of these people had never made a video before. So Sue's sitting there. We're asking her questions about her real estate business, what she does for a living. She's telling us about her ideal customer and how, she's been in the business for 30 years and she's working with some of the children of her former clients, all this cool stuff. And we put together the script for her. And then we go into the studio, and all of a sudden the attitude really shifts, right? Because Sue goes from kind of excited, a little bit apprehensive, to incredibly nervous and uncomfortable. And so we
Mhm.
often ran into this situation and we would ask people, why is it that you're feeling this way? And we knew the answer, but it helps to talk about it. And so would say, I just really don't like how I look on camera. I feel like I look older and you can see the wrinkles and the lines in my face. And, I just really don't like it. It makes me self-conscious. And so it makes it a lot harder to shoot these videos today. And so we'd say, okay, sit down, Sue. We're going to get you into position and we're going to give you, we're going to show you what you look like on camera before we hit the record button. And you tell me how you feel you look. And so we get her all set up. We put all our lights in the right situations and all that kind of stuff. And then we would show her the screen. So we had the separate monitor we could turn around and say, okay, here's what you look like right now. And Sue's like, wait a second. That looks great. I actually think I look pretty good right now. I'm still nervous, right? Because this is a performance thing, but I actually don't mind how I look. I don't feel like I have all these wrinkles and lines and things on my face. And the reason for that was that we were using these lighting rules. Okay. So we did have some fancy lights. In fact, I've got, a big honking light right here, just a few feet away from my face right now. We'll talk about that in a second. So we did have equipment, but the rules that we were using are things that you can use in your own house. Okay. You don't have to have any equipment. And if we have some time, we could even do a little bit of an exercise today that's going to demonstrate this to you. Okay. So here's what you need to do with lighting to make sure that you look your best, because the number one thing you're going to run into is it's very easy to look unnecessarily older on camera because of the way the lighting is working in your environment. Okay. So here's the cardinal rule, I would say, is that you want to make sure the light is facing toward you, right? So the light, so if the camera's here, the light should be coming from somewhere in this general vicinity, okay? So the light should basically be shining on your face directly from the same direction as the camera, right? So in this room where I'm sitting right now, I've got this big, we call it a key light. It's very large, got a softbox on it. It's about 2.5 feet around. And then over here, I actually have a window. Now that window, the sun is never shining directly through it. So it's a north facing window. So the sun's never going to shine directly in it. So what's coming through that window is just what we call ambient light, right? It's just the light from outside. So that is actually really good. So that sort of scenario where you have light shining directly toward your face from the angle of the camera, that's going to make you look your best. And the reason for that is that it's going to eliminate the shadows that any of the things on your face could create, right? So for instance, like I'm creasing my brow right now, right? But you don't really see the lines. You can see them just a little bit on the camera there, but they're not distinct. They're not being highlighted because they're not casting any shadows. If I shine that light from above me, so I actually have my overhead light turned off in this room. If I had that light turned on and I didn't have these lights out in front of me, you would see those wrinkles. In fact, any sort of blemish, if I have a pimple that day or something, or if I just have crow's feet or any sort of imperfection on your face that might make you feel a little bit self-conscious, is actually going to be highlighted by overhead lights. Okay. So right off the bat, if you take nothing else away from this particular presentation today, it would be this: turn off the overhead lights and turn toward your windows. All right. So face your window, turn off the overhead lights, and I would not be surprised if you feel like you look substantially better instantly. All right. It can really work that fast. I've done, and I should have probably maybe included this slide, but I've done an experiment where I stood just about a foot over to my left in this room with the overhead light on, and I took a selfie, and then I turned that light off and I walked 3 feet over towards the window, and I stood right in front of the window and I took another selfie, and the difference is night and day. All right. So that would be an experiment to try. And if you want, you can literally do it right now. I mean, I actually kind of encourage you to do so. So take your phone out, turn on the selfie camera. You don't have to take a picture. You don't have to record anything, but just basically just sit in your chair and just rotate about 180 degrees. And even just sitting in one spot, you'll find that from one angle, you probably look substantially better than another, right? So that is basically all you need to understand with lighting. It's
That's
that
funny.
straightforward.
It's funny that you say that at some angles you look better. I'm like, that is so true, dude. And you know what? With the lighting, like natural lighting or good lighting, it makes such a massive difference on your face. It almost feels like you're younger,
Right.
right? So
Absolutely.
I highly agree with that. Lighting is the number one thing that I've learned from you guys. So
And I
thank
think that's it's one of those, it also helps your self-confidence, because I think a lot of A lot of the times we're recording videos nowadays, we can see ourselves. Either we're seeing ourselves on the screen, if we're doing a selfie video on the phone, or we're seeing ourselves in like a Zoom presentation. And when you see yourself and you go, you know what, I don't look all that bad. I actually, I look pretty good right now. You're just going to be more confident, right? Like you're going to do a better presentation. You're going to make a better video. You're going to be excited to use this form of communication. So literally, like one of the simplest kinds of video you can make, and that's not really today's topic, but one of the easiest things you can do to get started with video is to send video messages, right? So you're only sending a message to a single person, wishing happy birthday, updating a client on a transaction. And if you can start practicing video there, you'll find that the customers are going to love it. Okay. They're going to appreciate this stuff. It's a better form of communication, et cetera, et cetera. But you're going to feel confident if you just make a couple small tweaks, right? And it might be that simple. Just literally stand, next time you make a selfie video and you send maybe a video message to a customer, wishing them happy birthday, just do it right in front of a window. And if you feel like, hey, I look a lot better here, you're going to be that much more excited to use this form of communication moving forward, right? So we're going to be talking all about equipment today. I'm not even going to really go into this Auxiwa clip-on light because it is later in the presentation, but that is one thing you can do to start looking into equipment. So now let's talk about audio and some of the rules for audio, and then we're going to get into a laundry list of fun equipment to try out or look into, all right? So first of all, with audio, there's also some really, really simple rules, and there's some easy exercises that you can do to practice and understand these rules, right? One of my kind of ultimate pet peeves when we're teaching people how to do this stuff with video and how to learn how to use it is when you just simply haven't experimented with the rule, right? So I'm going to tell you the rule is you need to be as close to the sound. So your voice needs to be as close to the microphone as you can get, right? You're going to get the cleanest, most clear audio if you're as close to the microphone as possible, right? Now think about that. Think about when you've seen a singer in a sound booth and they're recording music, okay? Where are they standing in front of, in terms of the microphone? Most of them literally have their face up against it's called a pop filter. It's that little screen that goes right in front of the mic. And it also like prevents spit from hitting the microphone. So they got their face against that thing, right? Or you've seen people in concert where they have the microphone basically pressed up against their lips. That's because they know this rule. The closer they get to the microphone, the better the sound is going to be. That is easy to violate when you're making videos, okay? So here's the exercise I would encourage you to do is just turn your phone on, hit record, right? You're making a video and just set it on the desk, okay? You don't need to have it in your hand at all. You actually want it to stay in the same place. And then walk to the far side of the room and start saying something. You can recite your 30-second introduction script or whatever, say your ABCs, right? And then gradually walk as you're talking closer to the phone. And then go back and listen to it. And what you want to ask yourself is, at what distance did it become clear, right? At what distance could you clearly hear what I was saying? And in most cases, and newer phones are going to perform better than older ones, but in most cases, you're going to have to be within probably at least 5 feet, if not more, like 4 or 3 feet even, for your voice to sound good, right? To eliminate that background echo, to be able to hear your voice clearly and what you're saying, right? So here's the thing. If you need to be further away from the phone or the camera to do this, and so what I would say is anytime you're going to be further away than basically making a selfie video, you're going to want to use a microphone, right? One of the most affordable pieces of equipment that you can buy just to get things up and running. In fact, there's a $10 pop voice microphone on Amazon right now. That's a great little addition that you can get started with, but that's going to be something to consider. Now, headphones, if you have headphones for your phone that plug in, that is a great alternative in a pinch, right? The downside to that is that you then have the cord hanging out of your ear. It's not the most professional look. So if you don't want to look like that, what I'd recommend is a lapel mic. And we're going to have some recommendations for you today on lapel mics. What that's going to do is clip to your shirt right about the second button, or Michael always says the hang loose rule. You go like this, and then from your mouth down, that's going to be where you clip on the microphone. It's pretty accurate for me. So second button, or you can do that, whichever one you prefer. That's where you clip the mic on your shirt. You plug the other end into your phone, and you're going to get really clean audio. Audio is easy to overlook, but the research actually shows that if you have clean audio, you're going to have people watch more of your video than if you worry about the visuals. So you could have kind of a dingy looking video that's a little bit hard to see you, but your voice is really clear. People will watch that longer than if it's the other way around, right? So audio is really important. And Last thing I'll mention is that up until about a couple weeks ago, I was under the impression that you could not use the AirPods with video. You actually weren't able to pick up the audio. And we had one of our students tell us that that may have been updated. So I have not had a chance
Oh,
to test
wow.
it yet. So yeah, I don't know if you heard that, Tristan,
I
but
hadn't heard that, dude, but now I'm going to test it out.
yeah, and I think you're the one that tested it the first time around with putting it in the closet,
Yeah,
right?
it didn't work. But I've got these the new Apple well, I don't
Oh,
even
there
know
you
what
go.
it is, Pro Max or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
And I have to test these out because I'm seeing some people use it really well. So I'm assuming that he might be right there.
cool. Well, so that's the case. That's great because those are super handy. And obviously, I think we're all probably a little bit more comfortable doing a video with one of those in our ears because they just look a little nicer, right? Than have the cord
True.
hanging down. So if that's the case, then I think that's a no-brainer. And I'd recommend using them in most situations, again, unless you're going to have your phone within just a few feet of your face. All right. Okay, cool. So now we're going to get into the actual equipment. And I always like to start with a couple rules just because it's important to understand how to use the equipment. So we did some basics. Now let's talk about the fun stuff. One thing I do want to just make a quick note of here is that we all have a lot of different models of phones. So depending on what model of phone you're using, there may be some accessories that are necessary for some of the stuff to work with your device. Just keep that in mind. In particular, it's the little dongle that attaches. And I actually just got the most recent Samsung Galaxy phone. It also does not have an audio jack. So that is sort
Oh,
of that's where things are going. So now I actually hadn't even thought about that until I was trying to plug in something the other day, and I realized, you know what? Got to go find my box and see if I had a dongle in there somewhere. So iPhones have been doing that for a few generations. It seems like that's where everybody's going. That's obviously why wireless microphones are certainly going to sort of explode in popularity in the next couple years, I'm sure. So next thing I want to mention as we get into this is also do your research. One thing that we found with video equipment is that it runs the gamut. It is all over the place. You can buy extremely affordable video equipment that runs under $10 in a lot of cases, and you can buy exorbitantly expensive video equipment. I mean, if you look into lights, you can buy some really simple lights for 20 bucks. I mean, actually, I think the clip-on ring light right now is like $14. It's insanely cheap. And you can also buy lights for thousands and thousands of dollars a piece. We're talking $10,000+ per light. Okay. You do not need that stuff. I don't think any amateur video producer is ever going to buy it, but there's a big range. And there is always going to be an exchange, in my experience, between price and quality. And the reason I bring that up now is that for most of us, we are going to be doing videos for the rest of our lives. Okay. There's going to be some form of video that we will be making because it's a better form of communication in a lot of contexts, right? So if you accept that and you understand, hey, this is probably something I'm going to be doing for a long time, you might want to actually err on the side of a little higher quality because it will hold up. I will tell you the stuff that's on the cheap end. Sometimes you just get a faulty one. So that's one downside is you sometimes have to do exchanges. Sometimes the stuff wears out really quickly. So just a couple of things to keep in mind in terms of price versus quality, but I will give you some suggestions on both ends of the spectrum, not all the way on the super expensive side. We're not going to talk about any $10,000 lights or anything like that today. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically break this into these two categories. We're going to talk about some beginner equipment, stuff that you might get if you've never made a video today. Make a few first, but you might be buying some of the stuff in the next few weeks. And then intermediate, which is going to be a few tips and tools that you can use if you're getting a little bit more advanced, right? You're getting to the point where you're making videos consistently and you want to set it yourself up to look like Tristan there in his professional looking at-home studio. Then there's some suggestions on what you can get in that case as well. All right. Okay, so let's get started here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you a bunch of this stuff. I will give you a chance if you want to reach out to us to get a list of all this equipment. So don't necessarily feel like you have to write everything down. We will need your email to send it to you, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The first thing I want to talk about is one of the simplest first steps you can take, but I do believe is one of the most impactful. And that is to stabilize your footage. And that means buying a tripod of some kind, right? So obviously we can do selfie style videos. That's fine. In fact, a lot of these camera phones, they now have a lot of stabilization built into them. So sometimes you can actually make a decent looking video that's not too, it's not your hand's not bouncing around too much. But if you get a tripod, you're going to have complete stability. The camera's not going to move at all. And you're going to find that that's actually really handy. And actually, another part of this is it lets you use both hands. So even if you were comfortable making a selfie style video with a tripod, now I can use both of my hands and I can get further away from the phone so people can see more of me. I can do more. It's going to be something you use all the time. So when it goes to buying a tripod, and I apologize, I thought I had the price of the UB size 67-inch. I think it runs around 30, 35 bucks or so. So it's not too much more expensive than the tabletop. But I've got two UB size products here. And this is a brand that I have seen start to emerge as one of the leaders on the more affordable side, right? So they have a range of products. We like them. We've bought several of them and they hold up pretty well. They also work correctly, which is always the first question you have when you buy a new product. So we can recommend both of these. We got the UB size flexible tripod. And they actually, I think both come with a wireless remote as well, which can be very handy, right? So if you're recording a video of yourself and you can just hit a button and it'll start recording, that can help quite a bit, right? So one is for tabletop, the other one is full size. And I actually make sure if you do buy one of these and again, there's all kinds of brands out there. You don't have to get this particular brand, but make sure you get one that's tall enough, right? There was actually a Fujitech selfie stick / tripod that we were recommending for a while that would only really extend to about 52 inches. So for somebody that's, kind of getting closer to 6 feet tall, like that's way too short. It's actually going to be almost a foot shorter than your eye line. So then the camera would have to be pointed up at you, which isn't great, right? So the 67-inch UB size phone tripod is pretty substantial. This one is going to get you, pretty much up to eye level, especially once you add the phone to the top of it, and is going to be, pretty durable and hold up and everything for you. So this is not quite a full-size tripod. There's more expensive tripods. You can certainly invest in them. One thing I will mention is that if you're going to buy a nicer video-specific tripod, make sure you get the phone adapter. So you see that little clamp that goes on the top of the tripod that holds the phone? You got to have that, right? And a lot of the actual, typical tripods, because this stuff's, at a certain point, it's made for professional cameras or for DSLRs, things like that. They have a different mounting system, so you're going to need to get that adapter. If you just look up tripod phone adapter on Amazon, you'll find a huge list of them for 10 bucks, 15 bucks. You can kind of decide on the quality you want, right? So that's a good starting point. I mean, right off the bat, if I was going to say what's the very first thing somebody should buy, it's going to oscillate between either a lapel microphone and a tripod, right? And it's going to basically be dependent on are you doing a lot of video where you're out and about and moving and getting far away from the camera? Then you probably want to go with the lapel mic. If you're just getting started and you want to have nice, so looking at both Tristan and my videos, like obviously our cameras are on tripods. They're not moving. They're framed correctly. We're in the right spot in the frame, things like that. So the right distance and all of that can basically just be set. And then if you've got it at home setup, once it's set, you just sort of leave it, right? So that way, your camera's in the right spot. And that's pretty cool because to get on Zoom here and I'm using a DSLR camera, I can just come in, turn the camera on, sit down, and it's ready to go, right? So having a tripod, especially one that you leave in the same spot, can really help with that. All right, now let's talk about lighting. This one's always a lot of fun here. And this is where I'm going to actually get to show you at least one of these products. So first product you see here, we've got some sort of different tiers. And the thing you're going to be considering when it comes to buying your lighting is there's actually sort of two things I think are really important to think about. Number one is how often am I taking these lights somewhere else? Okay. If you buy softbox lights, like the one you see on the bottom there, those Inkletec softbox lights, they are flimsy. All right. Even the more durable, more permanent versions that cost more money are still somewhat fragile, right? You got to be careful about lugging these around all over the place. So in my experience, most real estate agents, if you're going to go do a home tour video, maybe you're going to be working with a videographer and they're bringing their equipment, or maybe you're doing it and you probably don't need to have too much stuff. That would be the one scenario where soft boxes probably don't make sense. But if you're going to be setting up in your home and you have the room, that's the second thing, right? Is how much space do you have? And that's going to help determine what you should buy here. So I've got 3 lights for you to consider. The first is the Oxiwa clip-on selfie ring light, right? So I don't know where this one went. We used to have one, but I couldn't find it in the past week or two. But it's pretty simple how it works. It just clips onto the top of your phone. It faces you, or you can turn it around and face it the other way if you want to use those rear cameras on your phone. If you want to make it better, those are higher quality, so usually you can shoot a better video with those. And that's it. And you just have 3 buttons, 3 settings in terms of brightness. You can turn it up or down just a little bit, and then it's going to light up your face, right? It's a very simple, basic light. I think it's very helpful when you're in a low light situation. So if it's the evening, there's not much exterior light. So if there's no sunlight to work with, that's going to be a good sort of backup. It's very portable. It's something you can keep with you at all times. And it's only 14 bucks. That being said, that's a very simple light. Okay. That's not a very fancy light. It can't do many different things. So if you can afford something a little bit more expensive, it's probably something you can skip. But if you like that idea of having something you can keep in your pocket basically and clip on your phone and do a decent looking video, it's a starting point, right? The next light you see here is actually more expensive than that entire kit you see below it, but it is a pretty cool little light. And I'm actually going to try to demonstrate a little bit with this one right now. So this is the Aputure Amaran MC. And then, again, if you go on Amazon, they have like 40-word long names. But I just know it as the Aputure MC, right? So if you Google Aputure MC, you will find this light. It's available in a lot of different places. Now, this is a totally sort of unique type of light, and you're going to have certain situations where this could be really cool and really handy to have, and others where it isn't, right? Now, the one thing I'm going to start out by saying about this light is part of why I included this as a beginner option, even though it does cost 106 bucks, is that it does a lot of different things. So you could buy this light and you could probably do a lot of what you need to when you're first getting started. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's go ahead and turn it on. And so you can see here, I mean, it's fairly bright, and that's turned up to 80% brightness right now. And so if I point this at my face, you can see how it sort of illuminates my face. And so this light is bright enough to actually be usable as what we call a key light if you're sitting down and you're not far away from it, right? Now this light over here, right? So if I'm going to hold this one down for a second, this is what I look like typically. Okay. And then if I like hold this other light up, you can see how it's kind of filling in the other side of my face. This light over here is only at about 20%. Okay. So maybe I can actually demonstrate that a little bit. If I kind of keep bumping this one up, and I just kind of, actually this nicer light comes with a remote, which is pretty cool. But you can see I'm getting up, now I'm only at 50%. My face is almost hard to see, right? So I'm not going to go all the way up to the top, but you get the point. So that is a much more powerful light. So you can imagine that if I had other people here with me, we need to light several people for this video, I could do that with the big light. This one won't light multiple people. Okay, it's not going to fill a room with light. But, and let me take one more step. I'm going to turn that one off for just a second, and then I'm going to kind of replace it with this light and see how it does. Let me turn it up a little bit. So now we're at about 90%. Okay, so you can see depending on kind of how far I get it away from me and how close it is, it's gonna light up my face decently well. Okay, so again, it's obviously not the same size. This thing's about 2.5 feet across. So that's the first thing. Let me turn my other light back. There's always a lot of moving parts when we're doing equipment, right? So that's the first thing you can use it for, is if you have one or two of these, you can light one, maybe two subjects pretty well, right? Especially in a pinch. But that's really not what I like about this light. What I like about it is all of the additional flexibility it has. So a couple other things you can do here is just keep an eye, and I don't know if you can really see this. Let me turn down the brightness again, so hopefully you can kind of see the color of the light, because that's what I'm trying to show you next here just a little bit. And this is always hard to try, you don't want to shine a light directly into a camera. But what I can do is I can actually increase the temperature of the light. So if you're familiar with that, what I can basically do is I can sort of switch between what would look like so you can see here, this is the lowest setting. And if that kind of looks, sort of like a warm color, that's the idea. So that's sort of a warm lighting setting. And then if I go the other direction, what you should see is more blue in the light. And again, I'm not sure how well that's translating, but now the light's a little bit bluer. So that's one thing I can control. But let's take this a step further. If I hold down on this little selection wheel and I come over here to a different setting, look at that. Now I can actually control the exact color. I'm just going to scroll through this a little bit so you can get an idea. But you see how the light's actually changing colors now, right? So now I can pick any color I want under the rainbow, and I can adjust the saturation of that color. I can turn that up and down, and the intensity. So I can increase and decrease the brightness of that particular color. All right, so that's really cool. And that allows you to do what you see behind me. It's a different light, obviously, not the same one. But that's what you can do, is you can create this sort of cool effect where you've got some different colors in the background. And I will tell you right now, As you make more videos, so this is getting a little bit more advanced, so don't worry about this when you're first getting started. Anything you can do to add some variety, to add some differentiation, to make your video setting look a little bit different than other ones is always going to be a good idea. It's always nice to have that flexibility because it's going to just distinguish what you're making from other people, right? Now, there's one more setting on this light. That was a lot of it already, but let me show you one more thing that I think is pretty cool here. So this is the FX setting, right? And there's a whole bunch of different pre-settings in here that are things like this one's called fireworks. All right. So, you can kind of see the light flashing there, but where would this be useful? Well, this again would be something where you would probably use it in the environment of your video. So you put it on the back wall, and I can't really reach over there and do it right now. But you put it in the background and then you just set it to one of these things. So like, for instance, there's this one's TV. This one's lightning. So you can kind of create like a lightning effect in the background of your videos. You can pretend like there's a storm going on or whatever it might be. This one's it's called party. I mean, you could probably literally use that at a party. And then my personal favorite, the cop car, right? So that's the cop car light. So if you want to make it look like you're getting arrested or something, I have used this in videos, kind of stick it on the back wall. And then there's actually one more aspect of this light that I'm going to show you here as well. And that is the fact that it comes with this silicone cover. So silicone cover is basically something you slip over the front of it. And what that does is it makes a much softer light. So I don't know how well you can kind of see that. Obviously, this is a little bit more harsh now, right? You can see how it's kind of filling the camera up with light a little bit more. If I put this over it, it gets a little bit softer, which is better for people. So if you're going to shine this on anybody, obviously having this diffusion filter, which sort of turns this tiny little light a little bit more into a soft box, right? So that's another aspect of it that's really cool. And then finally, I keep sort of remembering other features here. It also has magnets built in, so you can stick this on anything that's magnetic, right? So any metal surface that a magnet would stick to, this will stick directly to. And it even comes with some Velcro you can put on the back, and then you can attach it to anything you need to. Now, it also has the traditional thread on the bottom, so you can screw it onto any sort of light stand or anything with a thread on it, but gives you a lot of flexibility, right? Final thing I'll mention, again, keep thinking of additional features of this light, is that you can actually combine these lights. You can put several of them together and then use an app on your phone to control them. So you can create an entire room full of color and different lights. And, again, like if you had several of these, you could obviously light up a group of people if you're making a video like that. So a lot of flexibility. So this one, is a little bit more expensive than I would typically recommend for a beginner, but because of that flexibility and the fact that you could just sort of keep adding these, this could be a good light. Now, the one thing I will say is this is a battery powered light, has a USB-C charger. So you just plug it in and you charge it, overnight, whatever. It's going to give you about 2 hours of peak brightness on a full charge. Less bright, it's going to give you 3 or 4 hours. Okay. That's not a ton of time. So if you're in a situation where you forget to charge it, you can be, kind of in trouble, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that it's super portable. This is like, look how small it is, right? So it's probably like half the size of my phone, a little bit thicker, but otherwise about half the size. I can keep this in my pocket if I had to, right? So it's easy to keep with you, easy to bring everywhere you go. Very portable light, okay? So if you need some portable light, or if you like the idea of some accent light, this one's going to give you a lot of flexibility. And quite frankly, it's just fun to play with. The last one I'll mention here on the screen is the Inkletec Softbox Lighting Kit. This is, in terms of kind of beginner level softboxes, probably the most affordable setup that I've found so far. And that's been an interesting part of the pandemic, is that more and more video equipment has hit the market during that period. And some of it is really kind of cutting edge in terms of its quality versus its price. So $90 all in. Here's everything you're going to get. You get 2 soft boxes. You get the 2 LED lights that go inside of them. You get the 2 stands, right? So both stands that hold the lights. You're going to get a bag to keep it all in, and you're going to get a tripod for your phone that comes with a remote. Now, it's a tiny, basic little tripod. In fact, it's supposed to be full size, but it really only goes up to like the other tripod I mentioned, 52 inches or so. So I don't really use, I actually have it set up for streaming, right? So when I'm sitting down in a chair, it's actually pretty good for that, but it's not really a full size tripod. So just, kind of a small catch there, but just keep that in mind. But otherwise, you get 2 decent quality soft boxes for just $90, right? Another really cool thing about this particular kit is that these lights can be adjusted in temperature. So they're not going to fully change color like I showed you with this one earlier, but they will change from warm to cool, which is helpful. It's one of those settings that, do you need to worry about it? Not really. But if you have a particular skin tone that can be harder to light, having control over that warmth setting can be useful. And then it also has brightness control, right? So I can go in and I can increase and decrease the brightness. Well, the one thing that's cool about this particular setup is it comes with a remote control. So I can do that while I'm sitting here. And I actually didn't have this light turned on, but let me kind of turn it on for a second. We're using the one over here is what's called a hair light. So it actually sort of shines down from above, from behind you. I'll just go ahead and leave that on for now, just so you can kind of see what that looks like. But that's one of these lights, and I can control it with this remote. So for instance, if I wanted to make it brighter, I can just click on that. And you can see it's getting a little bit brighter over there. And then I'm not sure how well you can see the temperature setting change, but I'm adjusting the temperature right now, and the lighting and the brightness and things like that, right? So kind of cool. In terms of flexibility, and obviously being able to control it with the remote, I think is really handy, especially because I can control the brightness and the temperature, and I can basically dial in how I look on camera, which is pretty helpful, right? So the last thing I'll just mention on light equipment here, and I've got one more piece I'll share in a second, is just remember it's going to come down to space. So if you don't have a lot of space, you're going to want to go with lights that are more compact, right? So even if you feel like you're never going to move them, but you don't have any space to fit it in, you're going to want to go with something that's a little bit smaller than a softbox, right? Let's talk about audio next. So audio in terms of equipment, a couple things that you might want to look into here. This is the brand, and I will tell you this, right? Lots and lots of microphones on the market. Okay. So you have plenty to select from. If you want to get something a little bit nicer, you can. If you want to get something even cheaper than this one, you can. I will tell you right now, there's one called the Pop Voice. So POP Voice. PV510 plus. Let me see if I think I'm remembering that correct. So if you want one that's only like $10, there you go. All right. That one's $10. Works with a phone. You will need the adapter. Okay. So if you're using an iPhone, that's why we highlighted that on the screen. And in this case, now, if you're using a, most cutting edge version of the Samsung Galaxy, you will need the adapter. So keep that in mind. That's the cheapest version. I personally really like these Power DYs mics. There's two versions. One is going to come with an extra microphone and a splitter, and it's actually meant for interviews. But guess what? It works just fine if you use just one of the microphones and you put it directly into your phone and do an individual video, right? So you don't have to have a second person to use it. So I would probably get the interviewer kit. It's only $10 more. It's going to give you a second mic, which makes it very easy to do interview videos, which I think are a great opportunity for a lot of real estate agents, especially they're trying to build, sort of a farm in a particular community. Get out and interview the other business owners in town. Easy way to make good content. So that's an option for you, but you're going to get a quality mic in either case. Also comes with an additional extension cable. Another reason I really like recommending this mic, because what that allows you to do is get further away from the phone, right? Now, this is beginner stuff. So this is going to be stuff that, is relatively affordable, but will come with limitations. And obviously the big limitation with a wired mic is that you can only get so far away from the camera. It's also going to limit your ability to move. So it's very tricky to record a video where you're, for instance, walking and the camera's moving in front of you with a corded microphone. Okay. So we're going to talk about a wireless microphone in just a minute, but that will be the one major drawback, is that you're going to be a little bit limited in how you can move around. But this is going to give you a microphone right on your shirt. It's going to get it completely, basically as close to your mouth as you can. So it's going to get you that quality sound. It's going to get really clean. Your voice can be really clean. It's going to be very easy to understand you. All right. And then one thing I actually just sort of forgot to mention about the sound earlier is that a lot of these microphones pick up sound from all directions, right? So just because your voice is close to the mic does not mean it's not also picking up other sound in the room. So try to be in a reduced noise environment, as close to zero noise, zero background noise as possible. But you also might want to consider getting a directional microphone. So that one's going to be a little bit more expensive. You want to look for cardioid lapel microphones. In that case, it won't pick up the sound from all directions, but they are a little bit pricier. So just something to kind of consider as you're looking into your audio options, right? Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left, and I have some more advanced equipment to share with you. So if you're sitting out there going, okay, this is great, but I want to get to the more expensive, fancier stuff, I got a couple cool things to show you here in just a few seconds. I did want to take a quick break just to mention this to you, and that is through Business Video School, we actually created a series of free video lessons. So for a lot of people that are first getting into video, it's sort of hard to know where to start. It's sort of hard to know what you don't know yet. And so we wanted to start to give people just really micro lessons, anywhere from one, I think our longest are about 10 minutes in length. Most are under 3 minutes. And so we've got about 40 of these. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I actually have two things for you today. So if you go ahead and register right now for our free video lessons, number one is you're going to start receiving those. All right. We're going to send them to you in the mornings by email. It's something you can watch before you get started working. Just a quick little lesson, things like how to light yourself correctly, how to go live on Facebook, what to talk about in your videos, what equipment to buy, which is obviously what we're talking about today, so on and so forth. Right. The other thing, though, that I'll give you is I'm going to go back and check our list. And anybody that signed up here during this webinar, I will also send you a list of our equipment. So all of the equipment that we recommend in Business Video School. In fact, the list I'm going to send you is a handout from one of the trainings that we do inside of our school. It's going to have all the equipment, but it also has the links. So all you really have to do is copy the link out of that list, hop over in most cases to Amazon, and you can buy this equipment very quickly. So if you do want to sign up for that, you just go to your text messaging app. You open up your text message app, you type out the phone number as 44222. That's it. No extra numbers, just 44222. And then the text message you send should just be what you see on the screen here, which is learn video, no spaces. So LEARNVIDEO, no spaces, no quotes, nothing extra. You can see the example there in the left side of the screen. Just go ahead and send that text. It's going to respond and say, what's your email? And then once you reply with your email, you're set up, right? So you'll start getting our video lessons. And like I said, I'll send you that bonus equipment list so you have links to everything we've covered today, right? Cool. Let's move on. Let's talk about intermediate level. All right. So I've got a few things to recommend here. And this is, I get a little more excited about the intermediate level because this is personally all the stuff that I use, right? That being said, I would not invest in any of this until you know what kinds of videos you like to make. All right. That's really important to understand because if you haven't made any videos yet and you go out and spend $300 on a light, and then you're going to be doing a lot of your videos outside of your home and you're never going to use that $300 light, it's probably not a good idea, right? So again, that's not the worst. I mean, like I said, some of these lights cost thousands of dollars, but I would work your way up to this intermediate level equipment, right? Let's first talk about the light. And so I've just got the names on the screen here for you at this point. I've got a couple more slides after this. The first is the Godox SL60W, right? That means 60 watts is what that stands for. And that is this light right here. Okay. So let me turn off my hair light for just a second. So you can see that's just that light. Okay. That's about 24% of the way turned up right now. It's exactly 24% of the way turned up, right? So that gives you an idea of how much light this thing creates. It's a pretty darn powerful light. And in most cases, I mean, obviously I think I look fine here. I could turn on the hair light as well. And that kind of adds that extra element to the setting, but I don't need it, right? I could probably just have this key light and I would look good enough for most videos. So that's the light though. Here's the thing. When you get into this nicer equipment, you got to keep in mind that a lot of times now you're buying each individual piece, right? So that's just the light. And so that thing, it's about this big. It's a sort of honking piece of equipment. It's got a fan in it to keep it cool because it can get heated up because it produces a ton of light. And then it's just got a little square on the end. It's about 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. And that's what produces the light. And it is bright as hell. I will tell you, this thing gets really, really bright. So that's why you have to add the third thing you see on the list, which is the Glow Easy Lock Collapsible Silver Beauty Dish. These things always have really long names, right? So that is the Softbox component, right? So that's the piece that goes on the front of the light, and that's what basically turns that tiny little 1.5-inch light into a really big light, and it's what's going to make it look really nice. And then the last component you may want to invest in is a really heavy-duty light stand. We use the Neewer stainless steel heavy-duty C stand, right? That's going to be, I mean, it's literally made out of steel. It's going to be very hardcore, very heavy duty, and it's going to hold that light up really easily.
Neewer makes some good stuff, man. There's a quick question here by Brian and Doug. Brian says, is directional or unidirectional mic best for ordinary speech and reducing other noise?
Well, let me ask you this, if just to clarify a little more, can you tell me more about the scenario? So is this something where are you sitting down at a desk in front of a computer? Are you standing up, out in public with other people around you? The answer is going to depend a little bit on the scenario, but I would say that, in most cases, unless there's a lot of background sound, an omnidirectional mic is fine. It also means you don't have to worry about what direction you put it on your shirt, which can be handy, especially when you're in kind of a rush. And remember, when you have a mic on your shirt, your voice is the closest thing to it. So it's still going to pick up pretty clear audio. In fact, I used to do an interview show where there was a room full of people networking while I was doing the interview, and I wore a standard omnidirectional lapel microphone, and you could still hear me clearly. But you could also hear all the background din. And so there were several situations where we're sort of, increasing our volume to keep up with that background din. So in those cases, would it have been a little bit more helpful to invest in an in a directional mic? Potentially, right? Now, if you're in this situation, if you're sitting at a desk, in that case, I'm going to show you this. It's kind of good timing on bringing this question up, because I'm going to show you that's where a directional microphone is going to be both, good in terms of helping with your quality of audio, but also probably just easier to work with. And here's what I mean by that. So over my head right now is my microphone, and actually my audio might be sort of changing as I move that around a little bit. So that's the mic you see right here listed, which is the Rode Videomic Pro and mic stand. Okay, so I don't know, it's off and on available on Amazon for that price, but it came with the stand as well. So there's a stand right here, and it's called a boom pole. So have you ever seen in a like a movie or TV set, if you see them filming it and you pull back a little bit, you can see that guy with the big long pole. He's holding it like this, and he's wearing headphones. He's usually got a big sort of pack on his side. That's the sound guy, right? And his job is just to hold that pole out there overneath the people, or the people who are speaking, keep it out of the shot. So the rule is to get it as close as he can to the people without it being in the picture, which is pretty hard to do. And then his other job is to listen to it and make sure it's recording really clean audio, right? And that's all that person does. And so that's what this pole here is doing, is that it's keeping the microphone out of the shot. And then it's also making sure it's able to get as close as possible to me. So, I did the sort of hang loose thing. It's not quite that close, right? But realistically, this microphone is only about a foot away from my mouth. Now, if I were to use a lapel mic, you'd still be able to hear me. The audio would still be really clear, but then I have to put it on and take it off every single time. What I love about this is all I have to do is sit down in this chair and it's ready to go. Now, I don't know, Tristan, if you have your Yeti handy by any chance, but the alternative, if you want to, there's another kind of directional microphone, which is more of a desktop mic, right? And so if Tristan can find his, we'll show you real quick, but this is just something that's going to sit, you've seen it sort of the podcaster setup, right? It just sits right on your desk, and it's going to pick up noise from a particular direction, and you can actually adjust which pattern it'll pick up noise from. So if you want to have it go both ways and people can hear you on the other side, you can do that as well. So there you go. If you want to talk about that for a second.
Let me switch the video really quick.
Mm-hmm.
View. All right. So yeah, so this one's not the one you were talking about, Yeti, but I do have a Yeti one in the other room. This one is by Elgato. It's the Wave 3. And I just unplugged it because that's where the audio was coming from. Now it's picking up my audio from the MacBook. So these are super handy, and it's got this little wind blocker as well. So it can make it, I don't even know what the hell it's called. What the hell is this?
The pop filter.
There you go, pop filter, dude. It looks like a wind blocker, doesn't it? I mean, it blocks the wind.
They're basically the same thing. Yeah, wind pop filter. There's a lot of words in video that are just like the same thing, pretty much.
I just call it whatever it looks like.
The thing that goes on the mic.
Yeah, the thing that goes on the front that makes it all nice and crisp. So yeah, I love these. These cost about $100 to $150 depending on where you get it. And the cool thing is you can plug it into your computer because it plugs in to the USB outlet.
Right.
This one's a C, but you can get one that's not a C as well. So
love it.
That's
cool.
that, bro.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And that's, so that's a great point Tristan brings up, which is some of these will be directly into your computer, which means they're only going to work with a computer, right? So that's going to be super easy. Just plug it in, you're ready to go, which I love about it. But it's also not going to work with a phone or a camera, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. I have mostly camera or phone compatible equipment just because my background is in producing videos, right? So hopefully that answers your question. If you are going to be in a permanent situation, you can do an overhead mic, you can do a tabletop mic. Those are both going to be directional. And if you have kids or if you have other family member in the house and they're making noise, that will help reduce that background sound. Couple more sort of bonus pieces of equipment for you real quick here. We got a few minutes left and then we got to wrap up. I did see a question asking for the text in phone number. I'm going to show that again at the very end, but I just want to make sure we got a chance to cover the remaining pieces here. So a few other things you might want to look into. Again, this is as you get more advanced. One would be a teleprompter. So we get a lot of questions about this in the school is I want to be able to use scripts with my videos. And there are apps on your phone where you can load a teleprompter. You can load the script on the screen and then record yourself selfie style. But if you want to shoot a nicer video where you want to have the actual teleprompter where you're looking directly into the camera, and I have this exact teleprompter actually set up right now. So when I'm looking into the camera and I'm talking to all of you, I'm actually looking through that piece of glass. There's no words on it. This is not a scripted presentation, but I just leave my camera in it because it's easy. And then if I ever need to, I just literally take my phone with the app where it's got the text scrolling and I just set it, you can't see it obviously, but I set it right there. And then I'm able to read the lines into the camera. A couple $100, so it's not cheap, but that is basically a professional quality teleprompter. You can take a tablet or a phone, put it in front of it, have your words scroll on it, and you're going to be able to read them no problem. The next piece of equipment that you might want to invest in as you get a little bit more advanced is the DJI OM4. This is the gimbal that made Tristan famous on TikTok because he did a couple demos of it and went viral talking about this particular gimbal because it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool piece of equipment. So this thing is super compact. You can see how small it folds down into. And then to use it, you just pop up the arm like that. And one other cool thing about this gimbal is that it comes with this magnetic clip, right? So basically it's a clamp that I can just swap onto my phone here. It just takes a couple seconds, right? So now I've got it on my phone and then I just literally pop it to the gimbal and now we're ready to go. I can turn this on and I can start making videos, right? So pretty cool little piece of equipment. We're not doing a full training on how to use gimbals, but what a gimbal is basically meant for is to completely smooth out your shots. So if you're doing home tour videos, a gimbal is a no-brainer. And in my opinion, the DJI OM4 is the cream of the crop. It's the best gimbal for phones available on the market, at least in our professional opinion. All right. Last thing on the screen here to wrap up this slide is the Logitech Brio Ultra HD webcam. We also get a lot of questions about how to look your best on a Zoom call. And in terms of using a webcam of any kind, this is my favorite. I've used this one for years. At this point, I actually use a DSLR, and I think Tristan's using a DSLR right now too, right? So we're both kind of using the same setup. I think that is the future of this kind of stuff because it just makes you look that much better than everybody else you're meeting with. But this camera, this Logitech, will be close. It's not going to be quite as high quality, but it is a really clean image. I actually believe you can, in some cases, get 4K out of it, although different softwares are going to have different limitations. But that's a great webcam if you're looking for one. And then sort of my closing tip here as we wrap up is that if you have an older phone, so if you have a new phone, like this phone I have has 5 cameras in it. 5. That's crazy, right? There's more cameras in this than I've ever seen on a phone before. But a lot of older phones only have, God forbid, 1 or 2 cameras in them. And so you may want to consider investing in lenses. So these are the Moment lenses. I've actually got a couple sitting here in front of me. We don't really have time to demo them today, but they're pretty cool. They're essentially camera quality lenses. So if you can kind of see that in my hand there, that's a piece of metal and glass. This is a really quality piece of glass. It's actually very comparable to the kinds of lenses you would put on a camera, obviously just much smaller because the camera in your phone typically is much smaller. And so this is going to allow you to get either a wider shot or a closer up shot. So you can do telephoto, which is going to get you zoomed in really far, or you can also get a wide angle version. And if you have an older phone and you're trying to do more with video, again, this is pretty advanced. Most people don't need these, but that would be something you can invest in. If you want to check them out, just go to Moment Lenses. Just Google Moment Lenses. I'm not sure. It's like moment.com or momentlenses.com, I believe. So there you go. All right. That's the lenses. And that brings us back to the question we just got, which was, what was the text in number? And it is noon. So at least St. Louis time. And it's 10 o'clock out there for you guys. But that brings us to the end of the presentation. So if you do have any last second questions, I didn't see anything else come in the chat. So I'd be happy to hang out for a couple more seconds and answer anything you do have. But if you just last kind of reminder, if you do sign up on the email list today, we will also send you the equipment list. So if you do sign up on this, you go to send a text message to 44222. Body of the text should just read just learn video, no spaces, no quotes, just those letters. That's it. And then you will get a copy of the equipment list as well.
Nick, do we have a landing page for that so we can just blast it out to the region?
Yeah, we don't yet. We need to put one together. We're always kind of like updating this list, and we just haven't put it out publicly. We have one for the $300 equipment. Huh? Okay.
You can, if you want to send that to me and to AJ,
we'll set something up. Yeah.
All right, we can blast that out to the we have 8,000 people in our region, so
cool. Yeah, we'll get a landing page together for it because I think a lot of people will want that.
Definitely. All right, man.
No
I love that. So, did you get a chance? We got. Oh, we're a little. Oh, we can go a minute over. Business Video School. You didn't talk about that. Can you talk for a minute on that? Really quick?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so Business Video School, we are an educational program for real estate agents that want to learn how to use video in your business, right? So we've developed something that we call the Real Estate Video Roadmap, which is essentially an entire step-by-step process that we recommend real estate agents follow to learn to use video. So one thing that we've identified, having tried to learn to use video ourselves for the past half a decade, is that there are a lot of things to learn and they can be quite overwhelming. And that a lot of times when you first get started, we've seen too many agents sort of try to bite off more than they can chew and get really frustrated by it. So when you work with us, we start at the very beginning and we take one step at a time. I'm not going to get into all the details, but when we first start, one of the first things we teach you to do in the first few weeks is how to send video messages, right? How to start communicating one-on-one with video, because it's the easiest place to start. Then we work on equipment you should purchase and the editing process. We teach everybody how to edit in the second month, right? And so what we do is we sort of gradually build on those skills until after just a few months, you're communicating across your business through video, right? So there's a whole bunch of other things we do. We provide video recipes to our students every week. We've got accountability challenges, which are tied to holidays. We make holiday themed videos. Those are always a lot of fun. Lots of different things. So, I won't get into all of it today, but you will get more information if you're on our email list, or if you just want to go straight to checking us out. I'll just put the link in the chat, but it's just bizvideoschool.com. So let me go ahead and type that out in the messenger chat here. But yeah, you can go check us out if you'd like to learn more.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much. I think we need to do like another part to this, a continuation on whatever you think is good, maybe like in about 2 months.
Yeah, happy to.
Awesome.
Yeah, we can talk more on equipment again, or we can come in and talk. It'd be cool to talk about tech, but like software, so maybe we'll come in and talk about, streaming software, editing, like stuff like that.
All right, let's do that, man. We'll plan it with AJ.
Sounds good. Cool. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Yep. See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.